welcome to WRPB and WRPB Studios. So you guys have been with me a long time, and know I always talk about the trauma I've been through, and I have to tell you, I believe that we all have some sort of trauma, and I believe that getting through that trauma on our own is probably near impossible. And though we all think we can do it, we can't. And I think, in my opinion, and I've said this a million times, it's always use a professional. If you don't use a professional, it's going to cost you 5 times more in money and 10 times more in frustration. With me is Susan Shirley, and you are a transformational coach. Did I get that right?
Yes, transformational life coach and
Okay.
holistic therapist.
Okay, so my question is, let's give you some edification and credibility. How long you been in the industry?
I've been in the industry over 3 decades, which makes me very old. Been licensed in mental health and addictions for 20 years,
Wow.
both in Florida and Louisiana. So I'm duly licensed.
Is that where you're from, Louisiana?
Yep, South Louisiana, Cajun
Oh,
country.
okay. All right, so what induced you to get into this field? And I'm going to tell you what I was told when I have a friend who's in the field who lives in Georgia or whatever, and she said, Wayne, all of us in this field have been through the stuff, and that's why we got into it. What got you into it?
So it's duly edged for me. I'm from a family where my dad was in Rotary, so service above self was kind of our motto. So we were out in the community doing Special Olympics or doing projects with Rotary and really reaching beyond, the confines of our comfort zone and being able to reach out. And that led to, at 14, I volunteered for Special Olympics and fell in love with seeing people succeed. And so then that led into my college degrees, which are in psychology, rehabilitation counseling, and mental health counseling. And so that's the beginning of my journey. And within that, I had my own personal struggles with,
Right, as we all do.
as we all do, with something or many things. So I believe it was experience that was taught to me, lessons taught, and then lessons learned by my mistakes, right, and our choices
But
that I made.
but lessons learned
Yep.
doesn't happen all the time.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that's why I'm surely not in your industry, but that's why trauma continues on.
Yes, it's generational because what I tell clients is we form our egos form around age 4 or 5. And when that happens, we learn our environment. We learn what's safe. We learn what we have to do to get love, to receive acceptance, to stay out of trouble, to stay out of the, stay in fear zone and stay away from trouble. And so those narratives and roles that we adopted growing up are the same roles and narratives that we use as we get older, and they still work up to a point. And then they stop working for us and they work against us. And the way that I approach clients is it's not a let's blame our parents because they had to learn those
Right.
behaviors.
Right, no book.
Right. So it's that generational, but we have the power, right, and within ourselves and within the resources that we have to change the narrative and to get healthy and really follow our dreams in life.
Okay, so you mentioned the young age where you're learning all those things. Is it different for males and females
To
to learn those things? Like being molested as a kid, okay, and I know that backwards and forwards. Boys are usually 10 to 12, 13 years old. Girls are 3 to 8. So it's a totally different scenario between the boys and the girls. Um, I'm curious if trauma or learning those lessons, do girls learn it quicker than boys?
I think in general they may because women and girls operate emotionally. So they will hit that emotional bankruptcy or barrier where they're not getting loved or they feel abandoned and they will reach out for help. Boys are taught sometimes not to speak up and not to say anything. And so for them to reach out for help generally takes them a little longer to really accept that life is not working for them and they can't power through it.
Well, we're guys. We never grow up. So it's a whole other
Well,
story.
girls don't grow up either sometimes, right?
So the thing is, like, I'm a guy, so I don't know what it's like being on the other side as being a woman. But I've been around a ton of women my whole life, and um, I've learned that I feel bad for women for a couple of reasons. One is because you have to deal with guys, and two is your plumbing is a nightmare. Okay, and three is you. And I don't know that you take things more to heart than we do, but you express it easier than we do. And that always amazes me because I joke that I'm in touch with my feminine side.
Mhm.
Okay, um, I've never had a problem. You know, dating was always easy for me for some reason, but I felt that knowing at least a little bit about women, which is brutal, would be a benefit for me.
Right.
Okay, I have no problem saying that I might watch a movie and tear up. Okay, I don't have those things. I'm an old soul, and I'm an old romantic, and I'm living in a world that's crazy now. But what I see is most men make ridiculous decisions. I owned bars in the past. Make ridiculous decisions, and we can make them without drugs or alcohol. Women men look at things with blinders on. Women look at the peripheral.
Right.
Okay, so they see everything. So I always joke that, and I get yelled at all the time about this. I get emails. If women around the country, we'd be in the dark ages. Men have been running the country. We're in the crapper. If we ran it together, we wouldn't be as far ahead, but we'd be doing good. I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, how do you get a male or a female to understand that they need to change in order to be healthy?
So I like to challenge their narratives about where they learned some of their ideas about what the male role was, like what the woman's role was. And there is significant research that aligns the child with like parent. That's where they learn most of their coping skills, either the daughter with the mother or the son with the father. And it really goes back to how those relationships were formed and how those interactions were allowed or not allowed, and they carry on those behaviors and those narratives through their life. So it's really challenging the narratives that they grew up with, where those narratives came from, and then being able to release themselves from those roles, which allows them to heal. And at any age and whatever the gender, it's the ability to really reach someone at a level, a personal level, that change is possible, and they can live boldly and authentically, and they don't have to hold on to the traumas of growing up. And everyone has trauma to some extent,
Right.
and whether it's small T's or big T's. And the fact that we can realign ourselves through traditional therapy, through coaching, and then I also do breath work and sound therapy. And there is great discoveries and clinical research on how breath can really change the way we think, perceive, and our bodies heal.
So you've been in the industry a long time, and I'm sure that you'll agree that you've seen tons of changes.
Yes.
The fact that a lot of families now are single parent, and usually the mom, does that make it more difficult to work on a trauma with a male that had only a female role model?
I think every person is different, right? And their challenges are different. I don't really categorize it by gender as much as by personal experience. But I will say that women, because in general they're more emotional, so they really hold in a lot of the trauma and a lot of the emotions. They kind of absorb from their kids, they absorb from their environments, because that's that nurturing factor that women have. So they do become emotionally dysregulated sometimes because there's so much energy and things that they have to do alone versus doing so collaboratively with a partner.
Okay. So is that is the main reason that that's true because society has made it that way that women you have to live through emotion, you have to live through, or is nurturing just a part of what a woman's nature is, whether she was brought up by just her dad or her mom?
Well, I think we're all born with unconditional love. I think we learn everything else we learn. We learn hatred, we learn fear, we learn anger, we learn all of those secondary emotions and feelings from the experiences we have. But when we're born, my belief is we are not born with all of those. We learn them. And when I work with women who are going through a divorce or going through trauma work, one of the things that really is appealing is that girls grow up reading certain books, but watching movies of Cinderella, right, or Snow White, the happily ever after, right?
Right.
And that's kind of the misnomer that children grow up with, is that Prince Charming's going to come and life is going to be great, right? There isn't a part two, right? No one's written Cinderella after, right? No one's written what happens if, your knight in shining armor has committed adultery, right? Or our Snow White has an addiction, or the dwarfs have some other toxic or familial disorders. We aren't taught that, right? We have this idea from being very small of what our roles are, and unless we learn early on how to kind of navigate difficult situations or challenges, then in the back of our mind we still have, wait, it's supposed to be
Well,
happily ever after. And
because those are the rose-colored glasses that
right.
we're brought up with. What's interesting about that scenario is you're right, but what about the boys? Because they're brought up with the westerns, the army. What are you playing with, army men? We're not playing with Barbie dolls.
Yep.
Okay. Do you think that that has an effect on our psyche?
I do, and in the same way, women, for men too, and as boys, they grow up with those roles, right? They have to be Superman, they have to be the breadwinner, they have to take care of, they have to be on all the time, right? And so when things happen in their life and they can't explain it, and maybe going through depression or anxiety or divorce or marital issues or work issues, all those things is in their mind, right? They grew up where we just have to push through it and do it, right? And so when that doesn't work, there's nothing in their toolbox to go, wait, I put on the cape as
Right.
Superman, right? And I can't fly anymore. The cape's not working anymore. Or I grew up where men provided and it was right or wrong. And then what do you do in the gray area, right? And so I think when we grow up with these roles that are put on us, either by society or our family, we reach that point in our life that we have to take off the capes. We have to take off kind of the masks that we've been wearing and really lean into being authentic and bold in our own life and forging through those limitations and challenges. I think everyone has the ability to do that. One of the biggest gifts is being able to cut the cord, kind of the umbilical cord from the past,
Right.
and start moving forward. And that's the difference between therapy and coaching. One of the main differences is therapy works a lot on the past and kind of refiguring that, right, to bring you back to the current. Coaching pushes you forward. What is your potential? What are your goals? Where's your authentic self? How are we aligning, right, all of our actions and words and interactions and relationships with that ultimate best self?
I mean, as a guy, I was brought up in a different world, different time. 68. I was brought up. I don't care what you say, with better music. We were not. We didn't do bad things because we were scared of our parents. We didn't do bad things because didn't want to disappoint our parents. On a whole, but I was brought up to be a fixer. Okay, and it's devastating. Like, my first two wives have passed away.
Sorry.
And it was devastating that I couldn't fix that situation. And on top of that, my second wife, who became a legal drug addict, and I found her overdosed. I don't. It's not my fault, but I take the blame because I enabled her. Because you love somebody, you enable them. And I mean, is that a trait that you can unlearn?
Absolutely, you can. You have healthy boundaries, right? And that we're really determining what do you have control over and what don't you. And sometimes, and you mentioned yourself, right? We take on the responsibility and that we have to fix, like we have to fix this person or the situation. And it's not so much fixing the person in the situation as being able to gain the skill set, the life skills, to be true to ourselves, have those boundaries, and be able to offer compassion, empathy, love without the sacrifice of ourselves. And sometimes I also had a husband, he passed away in 95. He enabled me. I have a history of addiction and been sober 33 years on Monday.
Congratulations.
And he enabled me, I think, almost in a positive way to keep me alive long enough, right? And the time was getting shorter and shorter for his ability to keep me alive much longer. But I do give the credit that if it wouldn't be for him, I would not be here today. Do I think some of the enabling, right, was for protection because it's fear of losing someone that you love. And so we will go to any length,
Yeah.
right, as fixers to prevent that. So fear is either the fear of losing what you have or not getting what you want. And then it comes out as codependency or fixing or fear or anger and all of those. And those two really tap into, that fear really taps into, I don't want to lose this person.
You know, guys, we could probably go on for hours because your subject is something that's so expandable. But I think that it's important to know, and I've said it before, it takes a village. You can't solve everything on your own. And other people working with you will give you other ideas. Now, my philosophy has always been relationships are impossible. I'm not just talking about husband and wife, boyfriend, because we have different mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't at least listen, then you'll never know anything more than you already know.
Right.
And that's how I see it. How do people reach you?
They can reach me on my website, susan-shirley.com. My webpage is being finalized now, so you can tap in there and send a request, and I will personally return those messages, or my phone number, which is posted, I think, on this post.
Yeah, I think it's the 337 number that we post.
Right, it's a Louisiana number. I
doesn't
haven't
matter
let go
anymore.
of Louisiana yet. So they can go online. They can call me directly. I don't go through a secretary or anyone else. I am the one that does the hands-on. I believe that is the first step in the relationship that we build, is that I personalize it in that way.
Everybody, again, use a professional. It's so much to your benefit. I want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you. And can I add that
yeah.
if there is the most valuable gift that we can invest in, it's ourselves and our mental health and our life, and how valuable we have to determine how much value we put on that, right, versus how much value we put on other
I
things.
think our priorities in the world of life is messed up because of society.
Right.
So give her a call, check her website out, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.